Hello and welcome to this InsideNoVa community conversation focusing on Prince William County's agritourism strategy. This discussion is sponsored by the Prince William County Department of Economic Development and Tourism. I'm Bruce Potter, publisher of InsideNoVa, and delighted to moderate today's conversation. Joining me virtually from the county's economic development headquarters are two experts in the field of agritourism and economic development, Henry Gordon Smith and Brakely Bryant. Henry and Brakely work for a firm called Agritecture, LLC. The firm is collaborating with the county to produce an agribusiness and agritourism study that will be presented to the Prince William County Board of Supervisors this fall. The study, which is still underway, is designed to help the county build a 10-year rural economic development plan to align with the county's strategic plan. Henry and Brakely, welcome and thanks for joining me this morning.
Hi, Bruce. Thanks for having us.
Excited to be back.
And welcome to Prince William County.
Yeah, we're happy to be back. We've been here a couple times, so it's great to be back again. A little bit
Good.
warmer weather, but it's beautiful.
Yes. When I think of Prince William County and our economy, to be honest, agriculture is not the first thing that comes to my mind. From your perspective, how important is agriculture to the county's economy and what role does it play?
Yeah, I love this question because I think it's also about looking at the past, right? I mean, if we think about Prince William County and its history and its heritage, agriculture was no doubt a big part of that. There were hundreds of dairies here. This was part of the DC food shed, and this contributed to the food security of the region. And that culture of agriculture still remains to this day. So while people may not see it, a lot of the reasons why people were attracted to live here was in part because of that heritage. And I think a lot of this work is about how can we maintain that, how can we strengthen that, and keep that part of the identity that's always been part of Prince William County.
In your preliminary research, do you have any statistics on kind of how many farms there still are in Prince William County? What sort of the nature of the agriculture economy is?
Yeah, we have some statistics on that. I'll leave that to Brakely for a moment. But I think one thing I want to say is that part of this work was, you know, we've forgotten about some of these farms and we haven't tracked them as much. And so part of the work at the very beginning, the first stage of work was really about benchmarking that and researching and looking at what the assets are here. Brakely, do you have anything to add on the numbers, what we saw so far?
Yeah, the most recent USDA census was in 2022, and it was Prince William County specific, and they mapped about 316 farms from our own mapping of specifically agribusiness, agritourism assets. We have about 107, right? Whether a farm is an actual operating business or has agritourism is what kind of filtered that number down. But we're still collecting input, right, to put in that layer. But the point of our study is really to enable the county to see those statistics and to see what land is available for this and who the current operators are now.
That makes sense. And so, we kind of all know what agriculture is and what a farm is. What about the term agritourism, which we're going to use a lot in this conversation? Can you sort of explain what that means and what it looks like in reality?
Yeah, so whether a farm is very small or very large, they're facing a lot of pressures across the country. And one of the ways that they can adapt to that and make more money off their land is by adding a tourism layer. So, in addition to its farming activities typically, but also other types of activities, basically agritourism means that you're allowing guests to visit that farm. So, it could be anything from what I saw at Burnside Farms this week, which I think is just a great example of agritourism in Prince William County, right? They get 80,000 visitors a year. You come in, you get to look at the spring festival of tulips, or they call it Holland of Virginia,
Right.
or you get to go to the summer of sunflowers, which I got to see this week. And this is a chance for a farmland to then get visitors and to combine that experience. And you go out into the field and you can pick your own flowers. You can bring them back with you, bring a piece of Prince William County home with you from that. And so I think that's a really perfect example of that. But it also includes things like vineyards, wineries connected to those, event spaces connected to those. So, it's an understandably great opportunity for the farmers to make money off the land, which is one way we can preserve what they have, but it also has complexity with it. And that's what this study is looking at, is how do we balance that with the other needs of Prince William County residents? Traffic, noise, various things that might affect also the character of the neighborhood. So it's a delicate balance. But in principle, agritourism is, again, allowing visitors to be there. I just want to emphasize one more thing that we found from our research is that farm sales have been going down in Prince William County. The amount of money that farmers can make off their product, but the amount of money they make related to the farming, which includes agritourism, has gone up by 30%.
Oh,
So
wow.
that is a sign that it is working and making a difference. And again, that's the key piece of this: is how do we preserve the land? And one way to do that is help them be profitable. And agritourism is a pathway towards that.
Yeah. Yeah, farmers face very small margins, and with increased pressures, especially around climate change and not being able to control the weather, right? This is a real important source of revenue and diversification for these operations.
And you may not know the answer to this, but is the decline in the regular sort of farming revenue, is that something related to Prince William County specifically, or is that just sort of the bigger macroeconomic forces at play?
The data that we are talking about related to farm sale decline is related to Prince William County. There are other parts of the country that have that, but I would say, without connecting it directly to that data point, we do see from speaking to the community, speaking to the farmers, that there is a little bit less of an interest in buying some of the locally grown products here. We don't think that's because there isn't potential for that. We think it's a lack of marketing and awareness. So I think a lot of residents here maybe are less aware of the farms because there's not as much signage. They're not aware of it because there's not as much visibility when they're doing their other tourist activities for visitors coming in. And they're not aware of it because there's no Prince William County grown certification. And these are some of the ideas that we're proposing to strengthen the existing farms, to allow us to increase not just the revenue through agritourism, but also agribusiness, which is part of the study. We want to strengthen both.
Right, right. So were the sunflowers in bloom this week?
They were a little bit the later end, but they were beautiful. I mean, there was about 20 different varieties. So we got a nice tour with the farm owners, driving around, looking at them, and yeah, took some home, gave one to the hotel staff I was staying with at Haymarket. So it was nice.
Yeah, that's a beautiful spot. I know. We usually send a photographer out there to get pictures. So,
Yeah,
so
very
easy,
photographic, very photogenic place.
easy photo spot. So, I mean, you've kind of teased this a little bit, Henry, but can you just explain sort of the primary objectives of the study that you're in the middle of, and what a successful strategy will look like for Prince William's economy?
Yeah, great. Let's take a step back here. I mean, first of all, I just have to say it is such a privilege for us to come and work in Prince William County. It's been such a positive experience across the community level, working with the county, visiting all of the wineries, breweries. I mean, this is an incredible county that's going through challenges, but also has amazing cultural opportunities around agriculture. So it's been a great privilege. And we first started coming here about 10 months ago. And essentially, we are about midway through, maybe at the little past midway through the study, where we have a draft of recommendations that we are going around the county and doing listening sessions. We did one in Gainesville last night. We were at Nova Live on Monday. And so we continue to go out and listen to the community based on our draft recommendations so we can optimize those and then consult with the county again and continue to get feedback. So that's sort of the stage we're at now. And then moving forward, we have a few more months, maybe late fall, where we can submit this. There is some urgency. We want to get this going. We want to make sure that we listen enough to all the needs of the farmers, the community, before we submit anything formally, which would translate to the action. So that's sort of the background on the timeline so far. And as far as the objective, it's really focused on, if we get into, say, the 2028 budget, 10 years from there, we'd like to double the economic output, at least, of the agribusiness and agritourism activities in the rural area. Again, the primary objective is how do we strengthen the value of this farmland, so the revenue they can make, so that they continue to stay conducting agricultural activities. And that could have an opportunity to mitigate some of the other pressures they face to convert the farmland, et cetera. So like I said, we have a range of strategies as part of that, but in the end, the objective relates to economic development in a way that matches the uniqueness of the farms here in Prince William County, and again, how to double that capacity for them.
And that's a pretty short time frame. You said 2028?
2020 is when we'll start. It's a 10-year.
Okay.
It's a 10-year plan from there. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
So it's a 10-year. In 2038, we'd like to double the economic output of the farms in Prince William County.
That's an amazing goal. So, and your team, you've done this with other communities. probably all across the world. You bring that global perspective. How do you approach benchmarking Prince William against other communities, and how do we measure up against other communities?
Yeah, I think part of, again, agritecture's strength is that we're a global consultancy. We worked in 45 countries, over 350 projects. It's a wide range. We work with government, but we also work on the farmer level. So sometimes an individual farm could hire us for an agritourism design experience and all of that. So we sort of look at both the micro scale, the macro scale, and bring the global applications to local challenges here. I think when it comes to Prince William County, what's really interesting for us in the benchmarking, beyond what we looked at across primarily the United States for case studies, obviously because of the sort of political alignment with what's happening here, is that actually your neighboring counties have really, really great benchmarking that we can look at. And that's what's fascinating to think about this project versus some others, is that you don't have to go that far from Prince William County to see specific examples of counties that have engaged with agritourism and seen the results and what mechanisms they've done. So, the question of like, how does it stack up? I think you may want to know a bit about that, which I can answer, but that's how to sort of what we approached it, how we benchmark it, both across the nation, but also primarily the neighboring counties of Fauquier County and Loudoun.
And yeah, I mean, how do we stand up? How do we, stack up against these other communities, and what strengths and weaknesses do you see in the agricultural economy in Prince William?
Yeah, I think that there's a few really good things going here already, and I think and some of those are the projects like Burnside or the amazing wineries or some of the other farming projects that exist here. So there are cases of successful agritourism here that we can lean into and strengthen and replicate. I think that's one of the first things that's a really big asset here. Another one is just the diversity of the population here, which allows for a wide range of agritourism experiences and uses. This is a really diverse county. That's an asset that can be leaned into. Another one is the actual income levels in this county are relatively high, which lends itself to opportunities to also bring some of that money into agritourism experiences. And finally, we also have the historic sites here, which are an additional tourism asset that could be combined with agritourism. On the weaker side, compared to some of the peers, there's no actual agricultural leadership in this county.
Uh,
There's no tension on it. If you don't have resources dedicated to that, it's naturally going to decline over time. We sort of get what we invest in. I think that's a little bit of the catching up that we could benefit from, and that's an opportunity. I think other challenges really are a lack of some of the marketing related to this. I talked about a certification, and one of our strategies is a Prince William grown certification that can strengthen both local consumption and attract and identify for visitors what is local food here. So that's just a snapshot of some of the strategies we're recommending and how we compare to some of the neighboring counties.
That's fascinating. Yeah, that's great. So you kind of covered this, but the study covers a wide range of sort of subsectors of that economy, if you will, including not only traditional agriculture, but farm to table dining and craft beverage producers and wineries, and even the experiential entertainment like Burnside Farms and the corn mazes and so forth. What sectors do you see as having sort of the highest, as you try to double the output? What sectors do you see as having the highest immediate growth potential here in Prince William?
Yeah, I mean, I can take this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our strategy really hinges on supporting existing farmers first, right? So I think where we're really looking to build the most growth is in expanding activities that existing farmers can implement to bring more foot traffic through their doors, right? So anything that gets them people on their farm, right, experiencing it, where they can also add in product sales is really where we see the most growth. So how can we add in those different revenue streams that support what's already there, right, in order to stabilize that population and get that economic sector a little bit more secure.
That's the low hanging fruit, really, is like strengthening the existing farms, again, from the marketing, reducing obstacles, et cetera. And then beyond that, attracting new farms into Prince William County and making it easier for them. And some of those relate to, again, removing some of the obstacles they have, incentivizing them. But we have to solve the problem first of strengthening the existing rural economy and the farmers that are here and allowing them to have a better chance of making money for the work that they do.
Yeah, and one other thing just to add to that is a big part of that is also partnerships, right? Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of beautiful, wonderful assets out there, but how do we get them organized in order to instigate, right? Mutually beneficial relationships between them.
Right, right. What do you have a sense of what percentage of the farms in Prince William do something besides farming? Like what percentage do some of these other activities?
Mm, that's a good question. I think for a actual number, we would have to go back to our data.
Yeah.
But there is room to grow,
Right.
right? So we have a couple of beautiful case studies that I think create a strong core that it can be done. But there are existing operations that definitely are interested in these activities, and there is room to expand what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's a tough thing to estimate exactly right now.
Right.
Like I said, some of this work required us just to really benchmark how many farms are here, right? And getting deeper into what they're doing and those percentages is something we definitely want to look more at. And there's a lot of ways to track this project, by the way, and the data that's coming up. If you go to the PwC Works page, you can keep updated. You can see the work that's been done so far, and you can be a part of this process as well. And we even have a farmer survey, right? So part of this is us surveying the farmers, allowing them to submit, are you doing agritourism on your site? What challenges do you face? And that's how we get to that answer on that percentage number. So that survey is also still open. And I
Ah,
believe we've added a link to that site so people can learn about it. But feel free to reach out if you want to be a part of that survey where we're trying to understand all agribusiness and all agritourism as part of this study. We're still listening and we're still open to information. And there's still time just before we submit things in the fall.
that's good to know. And when we post this for those who are listening or watching, we'll include in the blurb with
Yes,
it
please.
the links
Yeah.
to folks where they can see the work and participate and submit their feedback. So if one focus of the project is evaluating the what's called the arts and agriculture overlay, or sorry, arts and agritourism overlay district, which was a special zoning tool approved by the county board back in 2021. Um, what specific zoning ordinance amendments, overlay mapping, or incentive programs are you considering recommending as part of this study?
Yeah, this is a great question. So currently in Prince William County, right, we've hit kind of the most opportune time for this discussion because there is another consulting team working on a full zoning ordinance update. The tricky part of the AAOD and A1 zoning, right, is how do we allow operators to expand activities while not opening up Pandora's box to a bunch of loopholes of quote unquote bad actors, right, trying to take advantage of some rule in a way that's not for its intended purpose. So we're in active conversations, right, going through the details, the standards, the thresholds. So I hesitate to say exact language right now because those conversations are ongoing, right? And we want to make sure that we really dot our I's, cross our T's, and have a consistent set of rules that are visible, understandable, and support existing farms and those that want to get into agribusiness or agritourism.
Okay, yeah. Is it your sense that that overlay district has been helpful to this point?
I think you have people on both sides of it right now.
Uh-huh.
One of the main issues, right, was that the drafted map was never published. So it's very difficult to see from a resident or an operator standpoint, or even from inside the county, which pieces of land are actually in it without
Yeah.
that to the county mapper, right? So that's again a main barrier right now. There is always a purpose to having an overlay district, to having a map boundary outline. So again, we're currently in discussions of, okay, what was the intent behind that?
Exactly.
What was the purpose? How do we make sure that whatever changes that we're making aren't causing a litany of consequences, right? That would make things more convoluted and more difficult and go against our
Yeah.
intended.
Yeah, I think it's a question, Bruce, of intent versus impact, and there's a lot of good intentions in that, and we have to review those and seeing how they've actually resulted in impact, and if there's a more efficient way to do that. And as Brakely mentioned, we're going to leave some hints at what's coming, but we're still listening, so we're not going to reveal exactly what our plan is yet for that.
Right, right. So, during this process, which as you mentioned, has been going on for quite a few months now, you've met with many of the agritourism businesses, visited some of them, farm owners, other stakeholders. I know you're here this week, gathering feedback in sort of formal, some formal sessions across the county. from east to west before as part of the process of developing your recommendations. What early feedback or key concerns are you consistently hearing from landowners, farmers, and other stakeholders?
Yeah, this is a great question. I think first and foremost, there's a population here that cares, right? That's what we've seen at all of our community listening sessions. That's the feedback that we've gotten through our surveys, through our interviews. People care, right? And there just needs to be some organization and some connection and relationship building. But the early feedback that we've gotten to some of the draft recommendations that we've presented has been quite positive, and we've also gotten some inspirational ideas, I think, as well throughout our listening sessions that maybe we hadn't thought of, right? Which are important aspects to add as we continue along this journey.
Yeah, tomorrow will be our fourth listening session that we've done. I guess even our fifth, if we think about our very first one that we did, we began meeting with a first group of farmers and listening to their needs at the very beginning before we did individual visits. So, for me, it's the passion, especially of the farmers, but also the residents and the various stakeholders that's clearly there. And I think it's humbling for me to see as a visitor that people are taking time out of their day and showing up after work, and they care about this. And I think that's, going to your first question. Yeah, I think maybe some people don't think about Prince William County as agriculture, but I think a lot of other residents do. And they remember that history, and they moved here specifically for that reason and for the scenic experience of it. And they want to fight for that. They want to fight for a place that they drive around and they can have that feeling of agriculture and beauty around them. And I think that's what also motivates us. And they give us some specific feedback about their experiences. I mean, some of it's really good because we will present the strategies as they're drafted, especially in this round of listening sessions. And they'll say, "Oh, that was my idea," or "I thought of that. That's great. We need that."
Yeah.
So there's one in particular, which is like the commercial kitchen, right? So if you think about farms, right, and their ability to make money, it's not just attracting visitors, but there's other ways we can help them make money, including added value production. So turning the strawberries into jam, for example,
Right.
right? But they need a commercial kitchen for that. They need food safety skills requirements. That's another burden that they have to have. So if we can have a shared commercial kitchen that many farms could benefit from, this is one of the ideas that's resonating the most with the farm operators. Another one is the actual agricultural office and leadership. I think across the board, everyone is excited about that one. But there's others also related to farmers market issues, certifications, young farmers. That's probably the one which we heard the most. That was a new one, like it's included. But people are very passionate about topics of bringing agriculture into education and schools, and allowing young farmers to have a chance as well is another one. So, sometimes they feel like there's gaps and they tell us that, and that's great. It makes our job exciting to listen to what they think we should add. And that's the whole purpose of these. And other times it really validates what we've got. But either way, across the board, there's no lack of passion for agriculture and the vision for agriculture in Prince William County. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's great to hear, and the people are so invested in what you all are doing. So that's exciting. So as you move into the final stages, and you're going to make these strategic recommendations, and to the board, you've kind of teased a couple of the things that might be in there. But is there anything you haven't mentioned that we should expect as sort of major takeaways?
Yeah, Brinkley, why don't you walk us through a highlight of some of the seven high level?
Yeah, sure. So we identified seven main problems, which is what we've been sharing at these community listening sessions, and associated, short-term, mid-term, long-term strategies with them. Part of it is making sure that the rules are clear, right? So a big part of that is passing along what we've learned to this zoning ordinance consultant team. Another part of it is the ag liaison roles that we are recommending, so having a point of contact with the county. So once everyone understands the rules, right, things get a little bit less slowed down in the bureaucratic administrative side. The second part of it is marketing and support from the county side, right? So how do we build an ecosystem that really isn't fragmented, right? That people feel empowered to come to with their ideas, to connect with others, to learn from others, because again, the pieces are there, right? So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel at all here. It really is about connection. So the marketing aspect of it, a passport program, open farm days, which
Back open farm days.
we know have happened in the past, and we've heard from a lot of operators like, we love those. What happened? And unfortunately, COVID, I think, slowed down the previous people that were running that. And infrastructure, I think, as well, is kind of the third. How do we make sure that this is consistent, accountable, reliable support, right? And that these things don't just happen as a one-off in the short term or the midterm, but that it really builds that long-term arc of, okay, this is something that Prince William County is invested in, right? Is committed to in the long term. So that's what I think, at a high level is the takeaways that we hope, right, will come out of our implementation plan of this project. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think just also some of this, Bruce, will come down to education, right? And education across the board, right? Like every single group. And that's why we're excited to do this interview, because we want to talk about this and share this. And that's part of not just marketing it, but educating about the realities of the issue. But it's also education at the resident level, right? So again, like, do you, Prince William County, do you value your local food system enough to buy more local food? And if you saw a PWC labeled product, would you buy more of it? If you see that farm stand, will you stop? And again, we really want to hear about why or why not, because the neighboring counties have thriving economies related to agriculture and agritourism, and there's no reason why PWC can't. And so I think education, marketing sort of fits in that category. But it's also education for the farmers, right? I think some of them struggle to find the right grants, the right opportunities that they need. And I've seen personally already the staff, when we visit the farms, just by visiting them or highlighting, oh, there's this state grant, there's this opportunity, I can help you with this. And the county is there to help and really assist the farmers, but there still needs to be more work to bridge that and educate. And so I think a resources page, a website where farmers can find all this information very easily is really important. And then there's also education at the county level. We are spending a lot of time actually working with the county, working with the administrators. And you can imagine what it's like a little bit to be an administrator and to say, okay, you're getting these applications of all, like, agriculture is so diverse. You're getting all these different applications. So we have to be also empathetic to that side of it. And how can we simplify their process so they can efficiently deliver the services to help, make these farms get developed, improve, but also, again, not create other problems in the county, which is really core to their responsibility. So it's interesting to see how each of these groups, whether it's residents, whether it's the farmers, or whether it's the county itself, all could benefit from some education related to what we're looking at here. And that's, I think, what a big part of the starting point is going to be for this.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's a lot of ground to cover.
We've been busy, but it's great. We get to come back here. We get to do what we love. So.
Yeah, that's great. Well, is there anything that I should have asked that I didn't, or anything else that Henry or Brakely that you all want to add?
No, I think, again, we want to emphasize, please sign up for updates at PWC Works. If you are a farm operator in Prince William County, definitely please fill out the survey that we have to understand your needs. The sooner, the better. We're still here, we're still listening, but at some point we do have to actually move that into a strategy to move forward and fit into the budget. Then that's just the reality of things. But we are open now to that. So I think those are the two things we really want to emphasize.
Great. Well, go ahead, Blake. Go ahead, Brakely. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, just the more feedback we get, right, the better off it will be when we reach that point. So yeah, echoing what Henry said.
Yeah. So, and again, for those watching or listening, we'll include in the blurb with this, that link to, she said PWC Works, and how folks can participate in what's left of the study. So, Brakely and Henry, thank you so much for joining me this morning. It's been great to chat and to learn more about your work, and good luck as you wrap up the study. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.